Harpswell Select Board meeting of Thursday, June 6th. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance. Ready. Adoption of the agenda. We got the addition of election workers. I was thinking right after public comment.
The first public comment or the last one?
The last one.
Yeah, I think all three of these could go down there.
Yeah.
So,
Wood grinding and ratio declaration form.
so 13 that had point 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, that makes sense. Good with that, Jane? All right. Public comment?
Spike Highwell, Mitchell Field Committee, Harpswell Neck. This has to do with dog poo. We love dogs at Mitchell Field, and as summer comes, there are more and more dogs, more people taking their dogs at free time and at leash time. But we had recently had a report of somebody who was taking care of some kids, and they were playing on the north side of the causeway, and they ran into, the fresh stuff, and they let us know. So this is just basically a request of anybody who's watching that you have a dog and you want to take it to Mitchell Field, grab a couple bags at the top or down at the bottom from the dog station, and just pick up after yourselves, because one of these days you'll step in it.
Yeah. We can always revisit that leash law. Yeah, well, maybe someday.
Matt Gilly, Planning Board, Harbor and Waterfront Committee, Cundy's Harbor. This is in reference to, I'd really like to see our harbor master get some more funding. I know of 3 docks that have been built over in Cundy's Harbor without permits or anything. There's a boat launch being built without a permit in Cundy's Harbor. And some of them have been addressed, one of them in particular, but the others, nobody even, I myself wasn't even aware it was happening until I happened to go through a channel in a boat today. So I'd really like to see some funding. Our harbor master, I think, is stretched pretty thin. And I think that maybe some Section 9, I think, would maybe be a great way to get our harbor master some more funding, and we can discuss it when we get to that item.
Did you report these to Paul?
Not yet. One of them, yes, but the other 2 I just found out about today, and I haven't had a chance to see them.
Yeah.
But I talked to him about another issue, and he's stretched pretty thin.
Well, actually, those, if they're being built, that's code office.
One is being built, one has been completed, and the third one has been stopped with a cease and desist order.
All right. All right. Anybody else?
I don't know his name. Some guy from New Hampshire that just bought a piece of property.
All right.
Yeah.
Select Board's announcements?
Drove it into the ocean.
Well, is my mic on? Because last week it wasn't when I made an announcement, and so I'm going to do it again so everybody can hear me. The signs that you see popping up around town, Margaret, unfortunately, it falls upon codes to take care of it, and they have their plates full. But all of these little signs that are business signs that are appearing at every intersection, they're in violation of our sign ordinance. And do not attach things to utility poles. They're private property. They belong to the utility. So you can have event signs, campaign signs are regulated by the state, but those little business signs that are everywhere, and look at the triangle, the Cundy's Harbor Triangle, it's like 10 or 12 signs there. You can't even read any of them, that's just litter. So, don't do it. I guess I'm heard this time, thank you.
Margaret has sent out notice of violations to these
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
So they're on it.
Yeah.
You good? Town Administrator's report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I did want to ask the board if you would act on a recommendation from the Recreation Director, Gina Caldwell, to hire Peter Khalil as the Cedar Beach monitor. She recently interviewed him. We have an opening, and she's recommending that he be hired, and I
So
support
moved.
that.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you. Also, I wanted to ask the board tonight if you would make a blanket vote that would have the town of Harpswell serve as a fiscal agent for any Harpswell grant under the working waterfront money that's become available by the state. There's a grant program. Someone called me this week. They're trying to get their application in. We've had some other folks contact the code enforcement office. They want to make sure that the town is willing to sign off, and I absolutely think that the town should support and serve as the fiscal agent for any of those grants that might be granted to people in Harpswell.
Do we face any liabilities for doing that?
I mean, I think we have to follow certain rules as we do for any grant programs, but if we want to help the working waterfront, and this is a stipulation that they have to have the town serve as the fiscal agent, I think we ought to be willing to do that.
All right, I so move that as well.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
And
As part of that, would you like to authorize the town administrator to sign? Each person applying for this has to have a form signed
Right.
by somebody at the town. Would you like to authorize
Yep.
Christie? Because they
By-
pop in through.
by Monday, correct?
It's due Monday.
It's due Monday.
So we're expecting
Yeah.
several people tomorrow.
All right, I move we authorize Christie to do that.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you. And the last thing is, the Mitchell Field steward was approached by a for-profit company that does kayak rentals, and they were asking for permission to build a kayak rack and have it at Mitchell Field. The staff has discussed this request, and we don't think that the town should consider granting it at this point in time. So if you think otherwise, we
Nope.
would like to get your opinion or input. We just don't think this is a time, if we open the door for one, we've got to open the door for many. We have a lot of issues going on.
And they're for-profit, so.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
But let's get the ramp out of the way and all these other things before we even think about anything
Okay.
like that.
Thank you.
You good?
I'm done.
No? Consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda, which is the minute and the authorization of warrants.
Second.
All in favor? All right, Alan, comprehensive plan update?
Al LeGros, representing the Comprehensive Plan Task Force. Thanks for the opportunity to come here and give you folks an update on where we are. I want to start by saying that for most of us, we've been slogging away at this for over 2 years. I believe that the task force, even though we've been at this for a while, is still committed to making this happen. As I think Peter said in an email to me a while ago, I didn't come this far to get this far. So we want to finish it, and we'll talk a little bit about the timeline that we think is reasonable for that to occur. Another indication of the desire of the task force to continue to work is that they've agreed to meet twice a month for the foreseeable future, second and fourth Tuesday of each month. And again, it's another indication of their desire to bring this thing home. I want to talk briefly about the 4 recent community meetings that we've had in Harpswell, starting with Cundy's Harbor in late March. We had a meeting at Bailey Island. We had a meeting at West Harpswell. And we've also had a public hearing on the 10th of April, all with the desire to open up the comprehensive plan to comment and discussion by the community. Viewshed, our consultant, put together 8 pages of notes and inputs that came as a result of those 4 meetings. But I'd like to kind of summarize sort of the high points of those for everybody's benefit. First of all, we heard at a number of places that despite our effort to use all available means of communications, the anchor, all of the electronic media, Facebook, road signs, et cetera, that we still needed to somehow improve our outreach. People continue to come and say, well, we really didn't hear about this until the last minute. And I'm not exactly sure whether that is our fault or whether it's something else. But I am glad to see that the town is I don't know whether you've hired somebody or considering hiring somebody to facilitate communication, because I think that's important, and I think that will help us in the coming months. Secondly, there was some concern about the lack of a recent water survey for the town, water study. The last one that was done was by Ransom in 2011. We talked about this as a task force early on in the process, and first of all, there was not a lot of money to go out and hire a full-time study, although we have recommended that the town do a full-time or a full-blown study as soon as feasible after the plan is voted on. But the other reason that we really kind of said, well, let's hold off on this a little bit is because the geology hasn't changed. There's no aquifer in the town of Harpswell. We get our money, get our water in the same way. And when the Ransom study was done, the forecast for building in the town actually turned out to be a lot higher than has occurred since that point. So we also got some second-hand knowledge. I think actually Kevin made comment to me that the state hydrologist thought that Harpswell's water situation was pretty good. So those were a series of factors that we said, well, let's wait until after the plan is approved and then let the town move forward and do what they think is necessary at that point. Third, the implementation of the Affordable Attainable Housing Working Group recommendations created a lot of controversy. And I think part of the issue was concern over possibly reducing the size of building lots from a minimum of 40,000 square feet in the interior zone down to 7,500 square feet for a small structure. I think people were concerned about, is that going to destroy the rural character of the town? Is that going to impact our water? And those are all legitimate concerns. So I want to tell everybody that we are looking at that very carefully, and we're trying to come up with an approach that will make sense for the town going forward in the future. Attainable housing is an issue for Harpswell. It's an issue in virtually every community that you can look at. And nobody is naive enough to think that Harpswell is going to be able to solve the problem as a community. But what we might be able to do is nibble away at the edges and maybe help some people in certain circumstances. But I wanted to point that out as an area that we're concerned about and working on. Future land use plan. There was a lot of concern about a map that we put up showing individual districts where maybe affordable housing or attainable housing might be able to be built. Doughty Road was an example. Mitchell Field was an example. There was also concern over a mixed-use area that was mapped off in West Harpswell. We are taking a look at that again. We want to make sure that everybody on both sides of the coin get a fair shake and make sure that as we move forward that we come up with the best solution that we possibly can. We have been advised by our consultants that the more specific you can be in your comprehensive plan, the better the state will, I guess, look at it, if you will. So we might be able to make some adjustments to that where we can sort of generalize our plan while not losing enough specificity to make it something that the state will agree with. The final thing I'd like to mention is concern over unbridged islands. There were a number of people that complained that there just was not enough in the plan that we put in about unbridged islands and the fact that we have a number of people living, there are a lot of islands and so on. There are obviously challenges in terms of taking care of people that live on unbridged islands, but that's something that we're looking at as well. Outreach. I mentioned that earlier. One of the things that we're going to do in the next several months is put together a series of articles, hopefully that the anchor will be able to publish, that takes portions of the plan, divides the plan up into manageable bites to let people know, here are some things in the plan, so that instead of holding up this, which is, turns people off, some people off, that they can look at it and get a snapshot of the important parts of the plan over the next several months. We want to schedule a public hearing once this sequence has taken place. And we also think it might be a good idea to submit the plan at the appropriate time to the state to get their input as to whether or not we're meeting the mark and looking at something that, from their standpoint, looks like it's a go. I wanted to also talk a little bit about timeline. The task force talked about this on the 28th of May, and we believe that between now and October, November timeframe, that we can incorporate many of the changes that are necessary to make this plan more accommodating to everybody in the town. And between November, let's say, of this year and March 2025, March 2025 seems to us to be the appropriate time to bring this plan to a vote. That would be 1 year beyond the time that we hope to bring it to a conclusion. But we're hoping that the Select Board will agree that March 2025 at town meeting is the best way to end this effort and to get the town to buy into what we're putting forward. I am prepared to talk about, if you have any questions about when we think we might need view shed. We've met once without them. I think we want to meet a couple of more times without them to talk as a community, as a Harpswell community, about a number of things before bringing them back into the process. We're very mindful of the fact that this is not a free lunch, and so we have to be careful about how we parse the available funds for this effort. So I'm hoping that we can work with the Select Board to work something that makes sense. View shed, I think, is going to be important at several different points, but not necessarily everything that we're going to be doing between now and March. So with that, I'll wrap it up. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I think as far as view shed goes, we'll get 2 or 3 more of our meetings
Yeah.
out of the way ourselves and get everything kind of ironed out between everybody.
Yeah, makes sense.
Before we bring in,
Right,
get the family all on one page.
right.
Yeah.
The bottom line is we have a good group of people. They're still energized. They want to make this happen. And by golly, we're going to do it.
And Al, for my part, I want to thank you for doing this. I know what a tough job it is. I've worked on several comp plans and tried to get implemented afterwards.
Yeah, that's when the real hard work starts, yeah.
But I want to thank you for what.
I appreciate it. I was telling Jane that this has been a remarkably educating experience for me. I thought I'd seen a lot in my life, but this is something that's really amazing.
It's right
But
up
it's
there.
going to work out. It's going to be good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. At this point, we have to open a public hearing for a first-time alcohol license for Iris Eats Maine LLC of 419 Harpswell Island Road.
So I'll introduce this topic. Lisa Dana could not be here this evening, but she does have representatives on her behalf if there are any questions. But Iris Eats, located at 419 Harpswell Islands Road. She has a restaurant there, and she wants to serve on-premise wine and malt beverages. And as part of the application process, I sent out notices to the direct abutters, and we ran a ad in the paper notifying of the hearing this evening. And now it's before the selectmen to hear from any members of the public with any concerns. And if you want to hear from her representatives regarding her changes she's doing some remodeling and getting ready for this.
Great place to eat.
Wonderful.
Yes, it is.
Yep. I have nothing.
No?
Yeah,
Guess you can close the hearing.
yeah, at this point, nobody's got anything to say, so we'll close the hearing and put it to a vote.
I move we approve the application.
Second.
All in favor? Yay. All right, wharf applications, we got a couple of them.
You should.
Tim Clark, Codes Office. The first wharf application is map 29, lot 9120 Dickinson Point Road. We had two meetings here, one with the planning board because of the resource protection, and then the normal one. And no objections from any abutters or with the planning board. Nothing as far as the eelgrass or clamming with this situation. The only thing we don't have yet is the harbor master's recommendation page, but from what I understand, there's no problem with that either. It just hasn't been, and I apologize for not hitting the second box. But it is in here, I checked again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good.
The only thing missing in this packet, though,
Is the harbor master
Right,
letter, yeah.
right.
So it,
If approved, they
if
should
approved, you-
make that
Yeah.
correct,
conditional.
that condition. right.
It goes before the Harbor and Waterfront Committee, they took a look at it, then Paul gives it, he already talked to Paul, he's fine with both.
That's what I thought.
All right, so I move to approve the application as the harbor master indicates there's no hazard to navigation, no injury to rights of others in relation to fishing, fouling, or navigating.
Actually, the harbor master hasn't made that.
Well, I'd like to just clarify, he has indicated, but he has not had his formal Harbor and Waterfront Committee meeting.
Yeah.
And we get a formal letter from him, so he has indicated that, but your condition is really pending the approval letter from the harbor master.
Right.
Prior to the codes office proceeding with the final permit.
Final
he's
permit.
given
We
us
will
the
still
nod,
wait,
but not-
yes,
Right.
correct.
Right.
On both
That-
of these.
Right.
They're the same.
Both of these are the same thing.
Correct.
All right, then,
Both
okay.
stipulations.
All right.
The second one to make it official is 119. I'm sorry, did you want to do your,
Wait.
for that
We need
one,
to vote
Kevin? I'm
on this.
So
sorry.
we need to vote on that.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Second?
All in favor?
The second one, 119 Abner Point Road, Bailey Island, map 21, lot 1, or lot 13. This one, we just had the one meeting at. We had one abutter she had just questions and wanted the lot line mapped out, which we did with Tim Forrester, the designer, and then she seemed pleased with that result. So again, there was no eelgrass or clamming, all the setbacks are met, and we just need the letter from the harbor master as well.
All right,
Has this been before the planning board?
This one did not, no.
An LLC is a business, right? So normally we would put it, they would go before the planning board.
I suppose they do that because they rent this house out.
Yeah, that's,
I didn't
But it's not a
think about
commercial
that, but
dock.
I didn't think,
But it's not a commercial
it's not commercial,
dock
no.
by definition.
Correct, it's just a residential dock. So maybe that's why I
Right.
thought it was okay, but,
Rental homes, while the LLC is making money, the dock is
Right.
not a commercial dock.
correct.
okay,
okay,
very good.
Good catch.
all right. Right. I move to approve the application as the harbor master indicates is no hazard to navigation, no injury to rights of others in relation to fishing, fouling, or navigating.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. 5-acre community solar project at Mitchell Field.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Michael Bartner. He's here on behalf of Revision Energy, and he
Oh.
is,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
and he is presenting a proposal to the town of Harpswell tonight. I do think you're interested in using the PowerPoint, so we're just gonna make sure we're all set to go.
I meant to thank Tim for his work on the ordinance.
Oh, shoot,
He's gone.
he's gone. I asked him if he
No.
wanted a copy of it, and he said no.
No. Seen enough of it?
we want to? What do you think, Terry? No, okay.
How do I swap it? I have to swap screens somehow. Do you know how to do that? Swap screens? You're up. All right. Just so it's,
What, larger?
no, so my notes are.
Oh,
So say presenter view. Is there,
There you go, I think you got it.
I think if I. Yeah, no, it's. Huh. See, but, yeah, it's.
Some time.
Here. I guess one way is you just see my notes, but it's kind of,
They're too small to read
right.
from
Yeah,
over here.
it might as well
anyway.
not be there.
All right, we'll just do that. And
That's better.
no, I'm still,
Oh, are you looking to do a slideshow?
yeah, slideshow.
Yeah, so you should be able to, I see what you're doing now. I wasn't sure what you were after.
See if,
And slide, it must be click on slideshow.
yeah. Okay.
Terry will fix it.
yeah. She can fix just about everything.
Yeah. You got it built into the slide for some reason.
Yeah. Anyway, I think I'll just, you'll see some notes, but that's okay. Hello, everyone. Great to be with all of you. My name is Michael Bartner. I'm part of the Community Solar Farm team at Revision Energy. Part of my role at Revision Energy is to look at opportunities to redevelop brownfields. I've looked across Maine at brownfields and found that many brownfields in our state are not suitable for a community solar farm. I'm here in front of you because you happen to have one, Mitchell Field, that really lends itself to solar well. I reached out to the town about the possibility of Revision Energy leasing a 5-acre section of Mitchell Field to build a community solar farm. I've met with the Energy and Technology Committee. They had some level of interest and thought it would be a good idea for me to talk with the Select Board, which is why I'm here this evening. We recognize Mitchell Fields is considered a valuable resource for the town. At the same time, I think we all agree local action is important to combat climate change. Having a visible, prominent community solar farm on a town property is a beautiful way to display the town is doing its part to solve the climate crisis. As a coastal community adjacent to the most rapidly warming ocean body on the planet, the Gulf of Maine, we know there are a lot of people interested in how communities can support the transition to renewable energy. It's also a great opportunity for the town to earn some revenue that can help offset taxes. So just a little bit about our company, Revision Energy. Our mission is to make life better by building our just and equitable electric future. And as a certified B Corporation, we're part of a community of like-minded businesses, over 5,000 worldwide, that take social and environmental considerations into our decision-making processes. Revision is proud to be a partner of choice for communities across our service area, having completed more than 150 clean energy projects with towns and municipalities. Revision has worked on a host of landfills and brownfield projects since 2014. We've completed 10 in Maine, and most recently, the Cap landfill in Casco, which is a project I worked to develop. Revision is a full-service design and engineering and installation company with an unmatched depth of experience in New England. During our 20 years, we have developed and installed over 15,000 clean energy systems, saving our customers nearly $60 million and keeping a lot of CO2 from being emitted. In orange here in the map, you can see all of our residential projects, and in blue, we have our featured municipal projects. We currently have approximately 200 megawatts worth of solar projects in operation and over 100 megawatts under development for construction this year and next year. The community solar farms range from 0.5 megawatt to 5 megawatts. In this case, in Mitchell Field, we're talking about a 1 megawatt project. Here are a couple examples of solar projects we've developed: the Mid-Coast Regional Development Authority in Brunswick, 1.5 megawatts, and the South Portland landfill, a 5 megawatt project. So who gets the power from the array? There are a couple different models. The first model is Revision will sell community solar farm shares to families, businesses, and nonprofits, and the shareholder receives credits on their utility bill for the kilowatt hour production of the solar array. The second model is an investor-owned array where municipalities, school districts, and businesses subscribe to a percentage of the array's production and receive a per kilowatt hour payment. Recently, it was announced Maine is getting $62 million from the federal government as part of the Solar for All program, which will provide solar to low-income and disadvantaged households. So this project on Mitchell Field could benefit a housing authority designed to support low-income households and lower their energy costs, or this project could be structured as a lease-to-own community solar farm that supports low-income households. Now I want to talk with you about the environmental and financial benefits of a community solar farm on Mitchell Field. Here is a desktop review of Mitchell Field. It's really ideal for a solar project. The green is wetlands. You know, we're talking about the part that has no wetlands. You know, you can see the red lines are topography. It's, as you know, it's relatively flat. So this picture is one I took when I was looking at the three-phase on the site. So it's really ideal property for a solar farm. Here's a rough sketch of what a 1 megawatt project would look like on Mitchell Field. We're flexible in terms of the exact location of the property, but it would be around 5 acres. The climate and energy benefits. The project would offset about 1.5 million pounds of CO2 annually. This is equivalent to 2.7 million vehicle miles or 219 homes electricity use for a year. The energy produced would be over 55 gigawatt hours of electricity over the 40-year lifespan of the system. We have modeled a lease rate of at least $8,000 per year and potentially greater than $10,000 per year. We're talking about somewhere between $260,000 to $300,000 over the 25-year lease period, or $400,000 to $500,000 over the extended 35-year term. The biggest unknown which drives this range is the eventual utility interconnection costs. Preliminary indications look very promising here, but we will not know for certain until an interconnection application is filed and a system impact study is done. This is work that Revision would be doing at our own expense. Here's a sample Revision, this is a sample financial summary of the low end of the range. This is the worst case scenario. And would reflect significant interconnection and utility upgrade costs. So in exploring this further, if this is of interest, we would love to work with the Energy and Technology Committee or whatever other ways you suggest. We recognize the town would have a public vetting and decision-making process, and we'd be happy to support in any way we want. But just so you know, here is what the actual land lease process would look like if you chose to move forward. the town, after the town meeting approval revision, and the town would sign a 5-year land option agreement. The town would receive an annual option payment. Revision would undertake the project development, permitting and financing of the project, and upon completion of all this project development, we would execute a land lease agreement with the town. The project would get built and energized, and the town would receive the annual lease payment. So this is my information, and yeah, I look forward to answering any questions.
Staring at a blank wall. Yeah, well, I guess what we do is we turn it over to Energy Technology and Mitchell Field. And then have them come back to the select board when they come up with their findings.
Great.
You good with that, Spike?
Yep.
I do have one question because I've heard this. Are landfills considered brownfields? And did you look at the town's landfills?
Landfills are not considered brownfields. Brownfields are separate. Brownfields are federally funded cleanup money. So cap landfills don't qualify for this federal brownfields money, and therefore the solar incentive for solar development on brownfields. And I did look at the landfill, and it's small. It could not fit.
There's two cap.
Yeah, there's two, and it's only about 3 acres that are less than 8% slope, and so it's not the 5 acres that we're looking for to develop a community solar farm project. Yes.
Come,
You gotta go to the
come up to the
microphone.
podium.
We want everybody at home to hear you.
That's right. I just had, that was a great presentation, thank you.
Your name?
My name is Lily Ott, and I'm a butter to this project. And I'm curious about, when you look at the overall drawing, it seems that it will divide Mitchell Field into the upper half and the lower half, because the community garden's here, and then the field would be here. And is that something that you guys on the committee really want to see happen? I think that's going to make quite a difference. And I was also wondering about the runoff. How much runoff will come into the community garden? I know they've had some problems with the ditching around, and how much will that affect the water there?
Yeah, in terms of placement of the solar farm, we would be flexible in terms of exactly how the 5 acres are situated, so we're not like breaking up the field in any way. That's not advantageous. I think it's like a 25 acre, 30 acre field, and so 5 acres is, we can be flexible in terms of how to situate the panels. And in terms of runoff, we'll have a firm that specializes in environmental and water runoff issues, and make sure that there's no harmful effect of the way we build our project, that would have not have any negative effects on runoff.
Anybody else want to speak to this?
Just a quick question. Who pays for the decommissioning when the life of is the town responsible for that, or does Revision Energy pay?
Well, I think that'll be found out when time Mitchell Field Committee will run through that.
Okay.
Energy Technology, that particular committee asks a lot of questions about everything.
But can you answer that based on past model leases?
Yeah, the owner of the array, we have investors that will own the array. Let's just say as the classic model, then they're in charge of decommissioning the system after the lifespan. So that's very clear in the lease, and it's actually something that Maine requires for all solar projects over a certain size, which this would be one, is a decommissioning plan, like a finance some security around that this would be decommissioned after the useful lifespan of the project. You could imagine, though, that this could be, who knows what will happen in 40 years, but we think that it could be, not decommissioned, of course, that new panels, new technology could be used for an additional lease, perhaps, after a certain amount of time.
All right,
Thank you.
I think we're good.
Thank you very much.
Great.
We'll move it along.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, planners update.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and the public. First item that I want to address is the issue of home sharing. Home sharing is what I would call a new name for an old concept. Hey, Henry, we got an extra bedroom. Why don't we see if we can rent it to somebody to help pay the taxes? Home sharing is essentially the formalization of that process. It's existed in other places as formal organizations for a long time. Vermont has home sharing programs. New Hampshire has some individual community home sharing programs. The Maine legislature passed a law endorsing the creation of a pilot home sharing program in Maine. The responsibility for that program went to the what's now called Maine Housing. And Maine Housing has selected an experienced home sharing program provider called Nesterly, originally out of Boston, but I guess now their offices are in New York, that has a system of matching people who may be interested in renting a spare bedroom, the back house that got left there when the addition was built, to somebody who was looking for housing. This is not short-term rentals. The minimum term under this program is more than a month. This is really in the startup phase as a pilot project, and the state, through Nesterly, is looking to identify homeowners who may be interested in at least exploring, learning about the program, because you can't put people into units until you know who's got a spare bedroom. Nesterly has a fairly sophisticated system of screening both the homeowner, the host, and the renter, running them through extensive background checks. They provide services as part of the matching program to both, I guess you would call it, psychologically profile the homeowners and the prospective renters to make sure that they match and could be potentially compatible roommates. They oversee the lease, formal lease of the units, and they handle the financial arrangements in which the renter actually pays Nesterly. Nesterly then takes their small cut and passes the remainder on to the homeowner. What the state and Nesterly are looking for at this point are communities that are willing to take on the responsibility of spreading the word This is a statewide effort through their local community, not to tell people this is a good idea, not to endorse the program, but to simply make sure that people out there are aware that this program exists. The Affordable Housing Working Group, early on in its deliberations, developed a recommendation that the town should explore the creation of a home sharing program for Harpswell. And this seems to be sort of the fortuitous match where there was an idea and now there's a way to accomplish that idea, or at least have an attempt at accomplishing that idea. And what's really being asked of the select board tonight is to simply authorize town staff, town intern, and the Affordable Housing Working Group to develop ways to get the word out that this program exists. My understanding, and I think Lily's here, is that HA has discussed this and will be discussing it further, but probably doesn't want to take a lead role in it. So I think the ask, if you will, is that the select board be on board with the town trying to make sure that people in Harpswell are aware of this opportunity.
I'm willing to do that, to find out more about it. I'm not willing at this point to endorse Nestle directly, but I certainly would like to know more about it. We did meet with the Housing Authority, and they generally informed us about it. But I'm certainly willing to authorize the, in fact, I'll make that motion, that we authorize the working group and the staff to look into it further.
Well, I want to know if this.
That's not exactly what's being asked, to look
Yeah,
into it further. It's
they-
being asked to endorse
Yeah.
the working group taking on the informational role to
Correct.
support the pilot that the state has brought to
That's
our attention.
sort of what I said, I thought.
Yeah, well.
Not really.
Well,
As I heard
and a
it.
little bit different. The staff is already fully committed to everything they're doing now. I don't want to dump anything else on them. But if it's going to be, if it's the Affordable Housing Group that's going to be dealing with it, then possibly HAT takes a leadership role in it, then I don't have a problem with it.
My understanding from emails I have had in the last day or two is that HA is interested. They will be discussing it in July, I believe, at an executive committee meeting. They are not interested, from what I've been told, in being the leader. They are interested in being part of a program to make people in the community aware. And I do think one of the messages, I think when the Affordable Housing Working Group talked about it with Ivy Van, who was the town's consultant, who has been involved with a home sharing program in other places, is that one of the biggest obstacles to this concept is not necessarily the elderly or older homeowner. It's the daughter who says, "Mom, do you really know what you're doing and who's going to live there and what's going to happen?" So the idea, I think, from the role of us as the community is that HA is the perfect vehicle to reach out to the 400 and some people, volunteers and people who work in their program. But there may in fact be other people who know a neighbor, know a daughter who has concerns. And so that's the intention is only to provide information about where you can go to explore the program if you think you're interested in it. No endorsement by the town, no liability by the town.
No endorsement of the program.
Right.
Per se,
Yeah.
or the match maker.
I will remove my motion if you think you've got a better one.
Well, I have a comment before I would make a motion, but I do think I have one. Maybe better, maybe not. We had the presentation from the staff person from Maine Housing, and I am satisfied that they have done the due diligence with Nesterly. They have worked with them, and we have been, know that we can see a webinar if we want to inform ourselves more deeply about what they do or how they do it. So I'm not concerned about, personally, more information. I feel comfortable with it. That's number one. And number two, I think it is an opportunity for the town for us to explore and potentially very helpful to people who may want to engage in home sharing in one way or another. So I think it's a great idea. So my recommendation would be is that we ask Mark and the Affordable Housing Committee to come back at our next meeting with more detail about what would be required, because I do take your notion about staff time.
Yeah.
What would be required, and to work with the staff of the town for a plan on how this is going to happen that does not overburden people who are already stretched very, very much. And I heard you mention the intern.
Yeah.
But come back with some concrete, this is how we're going to do it, this is what the Affordable Housing Task Force is going to do, and how we're going to do it, and what resources we need from other town staff.
Right.
Okay,
And there is somebody on the Affordable Housing Task that is kind of taking the lead on this anyway.
right.
So she might be able to.
That's a more focused version of what I said, so I'll second it.
Okay?
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, we'll get to that. All right, another fun part.
Okay. The next item is an update on the Mitchell Field boat launch. And tonight is to talk about money and some financial issues and questions. And I'm going to run down through three issues that in various ways we may need to address. First of all is a month or so ago, I guess it was now, no, maybe not that long, you met with Dan Bannon to talk about possible revisions to the plan to increase the turning radius so larger vehicles could use the boat launch more easily. In follow-up to that meeting, the town, through Christie and me, got a request from GEI to amend their contract to add $18,000 to it for the additional engineering and revising the permitting that would be necessary to go along with the revisions. I'm going to let Christie later talk about sort of that, because as a result of that and concern among the staff, Christie talked with Lisa Robbins, who's the head of the office in Portland of GEI, about how the town feels about that, and she can share that with you. Second piece is that Dan Bannon has made the town aware that the Army Corps staff has raised the possibility that the Army Corps and DEP will require a payment of an in lieu of fee for the impacts on the wetland as a result of the fill. The amount of that fee could be $116,858. Again, we have had internal discussions about that because at various points in the process, Barney Baker had discussions with Army Corps staff about the fact that the wetland impacts had been reduced as a result of the pier demolition. And while there was no formal accountability, that would be considered when we got to the permit level. They are now saying that, no, that's not the situation. There is no credit, and if there was any credit, we've used it up on the two projects, the Potts Point project and the Mackerel Cove boat launch project. We're looking at sort of, if you will, appealing that preliminary discussion. This is where DEP and Army Corps are both involved in that. It's actually a DEP in lieu of payment. And so that's out there. That is an unbudgeted for item in the project budget at this time. Third, this afternoon, we got an estimated construction estimate for the project. Dan went back through the proposed construction and updated the figures. And hold on to your seats. His estimate is that the base bid for building the boat launch and the related improvements out on the causeway would be about $1,250,000. The parking would be, if it were paved, about $263,000. If it were not paved, would be about $100,000. That the engineering costs in here are $65,000. The in lieu of fee, if we wound up having to pay it, would be $117,000 almost, which is a total in round terms of about $1,500,000. If you add to that an inflation factor for construction in 2025, that would add about $100,000. And Dan has put in the updated budget figures, a $300,000 contingency that would cover normal construction contingency. We usually carry about a 10% contingency in the project budget to, account for things that didn't come out quite the way you thought they were going to, or extra costs, and some extra money to cover what might be additional costs through the reconfiguration. If you add that up, I'm now up to $1,800,000, give or take. And if you add in the money that was spent on the failed Town Dock project, which we split the costs with Maine Dot on, and the need of bonding of the contractor adds about another $100,000. So we're approaching $1.92 million estimated cost for building the project in 2025. Dan's costs were based on a survey of recent Maine Department of Transportation projects, recent projects built with marine projects with ship grants, and a member of their staff who, until recently, was a cost estimator for a major marine construction firm. So I think Dan's, I would put it in the reasonably confident that those costs represent mid-2024 costs for building the boat launch and related causeway improvements and the trailer parking area with a gravel surface.
Where's our reserve, Mark?
Our reserve? We have right now, and I'm going to look at Terry, I think the Mitchell Field Reserve account has about
460. 460.
that's what I was going to say, about 460,000. And of the SHIP grants, we have the potential, we've already charged some for engineering and permitting. But I think we have close to $300,000 of additional costs that the Maine Department of Transportation would reimburse us for. So we have about, if you will, the ability to use about $750,000. So these numbers are twice plus what we have currently available.
Yikes.
And sorry I didn't give you this in writing, but I wasn't paying total attention during the HVAC meeting, and that might have counted for my dumb question, but I was exchanging emails with Dan
I wonder where that came from.
about these numbers.
I've been busily scribbling here, so I've got most of it down, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just going back through, the base bid to do the boat launch, the improvements on the causeway, the turning loop, the pedestrian improvement, the stub pier for future, that's about 1.25 million. The parking without pavement, just gravel surface is about 100,000. Engineering that we still would be responsible for, or that has already come out of the SHIP grant, 65. The in lieu of fee, 116, almost 17. Contingency, Dan would admit that it's big, but we're unsure what might happen and where we might go with about 300,000 and another 100,000 for inflation gets us up to about, and then bonding and those sorts of things, gets us up to about 1.9 million as the estimated project cost.
Well, update us on the SHIP grant. If we don't start by July, will we lose it, or have you had discussions about that, possibly extending that out?
What they have said, they being the Maine Department of Transportation, said about 3 months ago that they are extremely concerned about the lack of progress, and that if the project was not in shape to go to bid by July 1, they would cancel the SHIP grants. I have not had any discussions with them about these numbers, and I think one of the questions is, depending upon what you say tonight, whether I should talk with them tomorrow about what we know about the costs and the in lieu of fee.
Well, seems like we're about 1.2 million short.
That's, your math is about the same as mine.
Yeah,
Orr's Island School taught you well, right?
it did.
I don't, I mean,
Yeah.
I think Christie and I were sort of, Christie was kind of jumping up and down, just saying, did you see the email from Dan? Did you see the email from Dan? And I was in a meeting with Mary Ann about sea level rise road projects, which we need to also talk about, and maybe we can add that onto the agenda at the end. And so, as soon as I get done with those, we looked at the numbers from Dan, and
Yes.
I think we're just hugely disappointed that we didn't have this information sooner, and I really regret that we didn't have it at the workshop when Dan Bannon was presenting the change in the diameter for the turnaround. So it kind of trickled in, 1, 2, 3. We got the proposal from GEI for more design costs for $12,000, more permitting work they were going to do for $6,000. We thought, okay, $18,000, we're not happy about that. Then the next week, we get this in lieu fee of over $100,000, and we're not happy about that.
Yeah.
And we are strategizing about how we would attempt to reduce that figure. And then today, we get these updated estimated costs. You know, we really haven't even had time to really delve into those. And I do think we need to have a conversation with the state about these recent numbers. It doesn't look realistic that we can even go forward with a bid. We don't have the funds to do that. So I think we need to investigate the conversation with the state about where we're at and what they would do if we don't have the money by July 1. We can continue to look into a reduction in that in lieu fee. We don't know how successful we'll be. And I did have a conversation with the person at GEI who essentially said they really supported their employee and they felt like these charges were not beyond the norm. So
Wow.
at least I expressed that we were not pleased about seeing those, and I would say it remains unresolved.
They've done very well by the town of Harpswell.
So,
I don't know what to say.
I think we ought to investigate where the state stands, what
Yeah.
reductions we can get in the in lieu fee, and report back to the board and/or have a workshop, include, again, the Mitchell Field Committee, the Harbor and Waterfront Committee with this information.
Yeah, but reading the tea leaves, you actually think the voters of Harpswell would vote another 1.2 million to do this project?
I don't have an answer for you.
Me either.
The thing is, we're so far into this project already, and it's like chasing something that we can't catch.
Well, you
It's
know-
very frustrating.
It's like, it's like digging a hole,
Yes, it is,
Sooner or
yeah.
later, you might have to stop.
Yeah.
Spike Hybel, Mitchell Field Committee, Harpswell Neck, ouch, 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 ouch. That was our reaction, having our Mitchell Field Committee meeting on Monday here, when we didn't have any of the numbers, but we had the request from GEI to add on to design fee for something that they didn't do correctly in the first place.
Yeah.
They didn't talk to people like the Saxtons or anybody else with a large trailer and say, how much turning radius do you need? But that's water over the dam. They didn't do that. Barney Baker left us hanging. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why this is just right up against the wall now. And the other thing is, we didn't have any idea until Mark brought it up that there might be a $100,000 fee that I still don't fully get that one. But my first reaction after ouch and after a couple of swear words in my head was that I think the town we are deep into this project. We have everything we need to build something. And maybe the town needs to start thinking about a plan B, which is to let the ship grants go and try and reconfigure what we're building so it's not so fancy-pantsy, and build a boat launch. This town does not have a boat launch. It's embarrassing. And we're so far in that we ought to see what it would take to go down that route. And then ultimately, as you say, ultimately the voters will say we want to do it or we don't. But a lot of people want this launch.
I know that, well, the whole idea, it's not fancy, it's having an all-tide boat launch.
Right, right.
That was always the dream.
When I say fancy-pantsy, I mean, we can do without the stub pier. We don't need the stub pier.
No.
We don't need, development at the end of the causeway right now. We can spread things out down the road. We don't need to do anything dramatic at the turnaround at the fuel pad
Yeah.
to accommodate trailers. I mean, if we really wanted to do this, we could just put our eyes on the launch itself and get a quality boat launch that even if the trucks have to come in and back down, they can do it. So anyway, it's really frustrating for everybody. It's just
Tom?
amazing.
It's another 18,000 in fees to do what you just said.
Right.
They just keep
Yeah, and why didn't they come up with that? I mean, they're the design professionals. I can't tell you how many meetings have sat through looking at Barney's
Yeah,
beautiful design drawings, and they didn't even get that one right. I mean, that's fundamental, so.
no, I agree. Well, why don't we have Mark talk to MDOT on next week? See what they say, and we'll take it from there and have more discussion on it. I don't know what else to do.
That's the only way we're going to know if there's going to be an extension of the
Yeah.
SHIP grant.
Yeah.
And you can come back with us, to us with the information as well about that in lieu of fee and
Yeah.
straighten things out with GEI as much as possible. But what was there, well, not necessarily answer tonight, but my question is $18,000 on top of how much we've already invested in the design work. I'd like to know what we've invested so far.
And $18,000 to re-engineer a mess up that they did. You know, that's a lot, you know.
It was about 66 yesterday when we were reviewing that, Mark. I believe that Barney Baker on Baker Design Consultants and then transferred to GEI. So payments so far for engineering have been about 66,000.
18,000 is a high proportion of 66 for making one circle bigger.
Yeah, no, I think we got a few more questions we need to
Yeah.
answer.
So for now, we'll leave it in Mark's hands till he talks to DOT.
But, and I just want to express frustration and upsetness as well, but I know the Mitchell Field Committee
Yeah.
has put heart and soul and much time and energy into this
Yeah.
preparation for this, and it is, like David says, we keep chasing
Oh, yeah.
something we can't catch.
Kind of short notice. They didn't get all the stuff till today, so they get it laid on us, same time I get laid on you.
Yeah.
All right, after that happy little thing. Special town meeting warrant for June.
Yes, I think there are
15th.
some copies over there on the table, if anyone wants to pick one up. And we have a couple people who will be consultants to the town tonight, our lawyer, Aga Dixon, and Sue Baker, who's with the state's floodplain management program. So I'd like to wait for them to join us.
Oh,
They're coming in guys soon.
I mean, I could just get started.
Okay.
So-
And the other stuff.
Yeah, special town meeting, June 15th, at Harpswell Island School. We'll be voting on 6 articles. The meeting starts at 10 in the morning. The first article is to choose a moderator. The second article is for the town to consider adopting a new floodplain management ordinance. And we were going to talk about that as our first item, but we can wait. We can move to Article 3. This would be an article that would authorize the Select Board to enter into a multi-year lease of not more than, and this board needs to tell us how many years you think you might like to present to the voters on the 15th, with Francis M. Bechrist, and we have added some additional language, and/or his authorized family representatives for the use of town property on, and we've added this language, or adjacent to Holbrook Street for the operation of a replacement commercial wharf on terms and conditions that the Select Board deems to be in the best interest of the town. We do not yet have a lease. We have not sat down to negotiate that lease. We may begin doing that next week, so we might have some more information to share with the town meeting. But this is a situation where someone has had a commercial fishing dock off of Holbrook Street, at least since 1999, according to the town records. The Select Board at that time was aware of the project and approved it, but perhaps did not get advice that they needed to get a lease approved by the town meeting for this to be adjacent or attached to town property. So here we are, 2024. It gets taken out in the January storms, and this person wants to rebuild. They have been authorized by the town that they can begin to seek permits, but those are conditional upon the select board getting final approval and a lease being approved by or the town meeting authorizing the board to enter into a lease agreement. We'll see. That's sort of the short version of the situation.
I'm thinking 25 years.
Jim?
25.
Which is 25? 25. I think that's consistent with the David Moody Wharf period. I guess we would want to know if the select board recommends that article.
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Okay. The next item, I'm going to turn this one over to Town Planner Mark Ironman. It would be amendments to the site plan review ordinance regarding inspection assistance for the Code Enforcement Office.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the public. About, I think it was 3 years ago, you recommended and town meeting adopted changes to the subdivision ordinance to add a similar provision to allow code enforcement to employ, if you will, outside services to oversee construction improvements and to charge through a peer review fee the developer of the subdivision. That arose out of some concerns about whether the codes office was capable of providing adequate oversight during the construction of drainage and roads and what have you. That has never been used yet, but the town has approved a couple of larger scale commercial projects in the last couple of years that potentially require fairly high levels of oversight, particularly the one for the new marine research facility that will have underground holding tanks and a lot of, civil engineering that the town staff really does not have either the time with all its other responsibilities or in some cases the knowledge to provide the kind of oversight. Tim and Margaret came to us in a discussion and said, can we retain outside assistance under the site plan review ordinance to help us review those projects? And we said, no. But what we can do is put a parallel provision into the site plan review ordinance that would allow them, if they felt it was necessary, to obtain outside assistance, and it's limited to, by Harpswell standards, fairly larger scale commercial projects with substantial engineering involved. That's what it would do, and the cost for that would be passed back to the applicant, to the developer.
Well said.
Okay.
Maybe you want to continue with.
Questions?
No, clear.
Okay.
Trying to find, I closed the laptop while the other presentation was on, and I lost the Zoom right here, so I just need to get that back, so bear with me.
We have one more before we get to.
I got two more. I'll give you a couple more minutes. The second one,
Mark, would you mention we combined the article now?
okay,
D,
yeah.
Please, thank you.
There are two changes proposed dealing with accessory dwelling units. In what was previously distributed, they were put as two separate articles, but they now have been combined because you don't want to create the situation where you adopt one and not the other, and then everything's out of whack. These sort of relate to the state affordable housing law. The town currently allows what are called accessory residential units, which are accessory dwelling units, ADUs as they're now commonly called by another name. The standards in the ordinance are, I'm going to call them murky, and they refer to some things that may or may not exist in state law. And so the proposal is to repeal the current definition and standards for accessory residential units and replace them with a new definition of accessory dwelling unit and new standards for accessory dwelling units. The key issue about accessory dwelling units is that they are intended to be accessory to a single-family home. Therefore, they are limited in size, number one. And secondly, the owner of the property has to live in one of the units. And so the objective is really to clean up, change the nomenclature of the current ordinance provisions. Questions? Okay. Third one is an amendment to the basic land use ordinance. I should go back on the ADUs and say that that only applies in non-shoreland areas. Those changes do not involve the shoreland zoning ordinance. The third proposed ordinance amendment involves also only the interior district. The Affordable Housing Working Group tried to identify ways that we could possibly diversify the housing stock in Harpswell and proposes allowing a existing single-family home to be divided into 2 units, provided that the number of bedrooms in the 2 units are equal to or less than the number of bedrooms in the single-family home. There's a information sheet, and if you look at, for instance, state plumbing code, you have to size the septic system for a 4-bedroom home the same as you have to size the septic system or systems for 2 2-bedroom homes for the identical flow. So the Affordable Housing Working Group thought that this could be an opportunity for a small number of property owners, potentially, again, older property owners. I think there have been a couple of situations where there were houses that were added on to create new kitchen, new whatever, and the old house is still there. This would allow those kind of situations to be divided without having to meet the minimum lot area requirement for each unit. So now if you got a single-family home on 40,000 square feet and you want to divide it, you need 80,000 square feet and can't do it. So this creates I'm going to describe it as a very limited opportunity that some people may choose to take advantage of.
Thank you.
I can go home now? Was that what that was?
He's got 5 minutes and he has to leave.
You don't want to stay?
How come he can leave?
I think he lied.
Does the select board recommend the articles that Mark just reviewed?
Yes, 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 good.
So I'm restarting the meeting because we got it lost during the switchover.
So we're going to.
What's that? Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, we can do that.
Can I do other business?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mary Ann and I met today with Will Haskell of Goral Palmer, who is working on the 2 road projects looking at the implications of sea level rise on them. In discussing his assessment of Abner Point, Luby Lane area, Will feels there are real constraints as to what can be done there, how improvements would or could impact the use of the boat launch, the parking areas, the neighbor properties, etc. And what we discussed, and I think Mary Ann's back there, I don't want to steal her thunder, was setting up a workshop with Will and the select board to look at that project and possibly one of the other projects that he's just starting to work on to bring you up to date and get some guidance as what may be acceptable or not. Will suggested that maybe late this month or beginning of July would work into his schedule and what needs to be done. And I'm kind of asking on behalf of Mary Ann, would you be willing to do a workshop before a meeting and have Will join us and run through those projects and get your input on what you think may be acceptable or not acceptable in terms of how they impact adjacent properties?
I could save you a fortune. There's nothing to do on the Abner Point Road. We just spent $100,000 on a boat ramp, which we negated. Luby Lane would all of a sudden be rose up. You get Jim Hayes' house, which would be impacted. Not to mention the 2 houses right there.
I think what Will is looking for is the select board to formally provide him some guidance with respect to that kind of question.
Yep. In my grandfather's day, there was a bridge there connecting the 2 coves.
So are you,
My-
is the board agreeable to us setting up a
Yeah, I can tell him. no.
workshop? Okay.
Oh, are we still waiting? All right, we'll slide on down to
13?
13.1, 13.2.
Recording in progress.
Yep, appointment election workers.
I move that we, turn my mic on. I move that we appoint Amy Saxton as a warden moderator and Janet Coombs as a deputy warden and ballot clerks, Joan Willett and Martha Israel and Rhonda Matthey.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Which one do you want to do next? Yeah.
All right, wood grinding recommendation and contract.
So this comes before your recycling center manager. The select board in the past has agreed for him to negotiate with Cross Excavation. While there's a couple of other companies out there, they're not really competitive for here in Harpswell. And so he has worked with them. They're willing to hold the prices for the brush from last year for brush grinding, and the demo wood would increase from $60 a ton to $63 a ton. and they'd like to get started before your next meeting. Asking you for your approval.
Yeah, I so moved. I talked to Chuck about this the other day.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now my ration declaration form.
Yeah.
Okay, so so the town receives its homestead reimbursement 75% in the fall and 25% the following year. And the state of Maine every year asks municipalities at this time, they're looking for projections on what you're going to be committed by the state for paying us our homestead reimbursement. And your assessor's agent, while the state has us at 89%, which means the town's total valuation's a little less than what the state has us at, we're able to claim up to 98%. Your assessor agent is recommending that we do claim 98%, which would give a value of $24,500 for each person that qualifies for a homestead, and that's what the town would be reimbursed for. Using our 2023 tax rate, if our rate goes up or down, then that homestead value will change, but at this point, it's an estimate for the state. They will get the full, complete Maine valuation return, but this is before you as they need that, and your assessor agent has completed it and recommending your approval.
Yep, I move we approve the declaration.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, Peter.
How we doing, Peter?
Well, we've got them on board, but we've got the wrong Zoom here, so I'm not quite sure what happened.
Good time for treasurer's report?
Sure.
Let her rip.
I never have this many people.
I know.
When it comes to my part.
Let's hope they have no questions.
Well,
I welcome questions, by the way.
I know, I just can't come up with any.
you leave no room for them, that's the
No,
problem.
no.
Good evening, Terry Gaudette, the town's treasurer, here to report on the town's finances as of May 31st. Cash balances was $2.7 million. Part of that is because this time of year we have to borrow, our tax anticipation note borrowing, and I did draw down the first $600,000 to cover the school payment from May, and we'll have to draw down some more on the 20th of this month to cover the school payment as well. Our 2023 outstanding taxes is just over $36,000. And the tax collector is sending out liens relating to the 2023 taxes on June 17th. So we do usually get quite a few payments at that point. As far as the 2022 outstanding taxes, it's just over $20,000. There are currently 17 unpaid liens that would mature, but every year we work with them and contact each person and are usually able to get those paid. So we're looking to accomplish that this year as well. On the revenue and expense side, non-property tax revenue available to reduce the tax commitment is just under 45% of the forecast so far, and at 5 months, we're at 42%, so we're slightly ahead of the forecast. One reason is our single largest source of revenue, other than property taxes, is excise tax. That is 12.3% of 2023 collections as of May 31st, and ahead of the 2024 forecast. Mooring and shellfish license revenues have basically been collected, as their due dates were May 1st and March 31st, respectively. So you'll see that those are basically all collected. Both permits and recycling center station fees are ahead of 2023, which is basically a single, sign of our continued increased building and demolition. They are ahead of the 5 months worth of forecast. The board is well aware that we were able to get a better interest rate, so our interest will exceed the town's forecast. Again, any revenue that comes in above the forecast will become available in our general fund to offset taxes or use for other purposes approved by town meeting. On March 9th, voters approved the town's budget. There's nothing really exciting in the expenditure area, following historical trends. Following our report on the Mitchell Field boat launch, it's rather calm in comparison. So our capital expenditures are for our marine and Law Patrol vehicles, for our media room improvements, purchase of an emergency communications equipment for our three-prong new system that's well under construction, which we're very excited about. Improvements to Little Island Road after the January storm that came from our capital account, and engineering relating to the recycling center Phase 2 that really want to get out bid this fall, and still pushing the engineers for that date. So hopefully that comes to fruition. But are there any questions from anyone? My
Sorry.
door's always open. You
Yeah, I
can
know.
certainly come to my
Oh,
office for
No,
no
but-
questions.
No
go.
questions now, but thank you for asking those little ones today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you have any updates on the communication tower? We heard anything?
When it's going live,
Yeah.
I know that the, the electrical panel at the Blue Sky Tower at Mitchell Field was put in recently,
Oh,
so.
And energized.
And energized.
Oh, it was.
So, I don't have a date yet.
No.
so-
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I had to come up with something.
Okay. But Verizon has a permit to put equipment on the Mitchell Field Tower.
Yeah.
But we do not have a construction schedule from Verizon.
No,
so
I
don't
heard they
know.
got a permit for the pad,
Well, no, they got a permit to put the equipment on.
right? Should have got AT&T. Works like a charm.
I don't know if you think we ought to try for phone.
We should do a backup because I can't get the, I can get them on the Zoom, but I can't get the Zoom video from the monitor.
So I think maybe we'll start with,
Yeah, just put her on the,
I'll put her on that, yes.
yeah, put her on the speaker.
And let her know. I do not have a town attorney on speed dial, okay? We're ready to go, if you're ready.
What I did is I logged in and logged Zoom.
Hi, it's Christy calling. So we are having technical difficulties, but we're gonna have you participate by phone.
Recording in
So,
progress.
In just a couple minutes, and I'm just gonna ask you to kind of lead off the overview of the floodplain management ordinance situation. Kind of how we got here, the backstory, and your insights into perhaps why you think the town ought to recommend this, okay? Okay. Oh, that's true. Okay, yes, I will. Okay, yeah. All right, so we have Aga Dixon on the line. Can you hear me, Aga?
I can, Christy. Hi, everybody.
Okay. Aga is an attorney for Drummond Woodson. She's been working with the town of Harpswell for several years now on the floodplain management issue. She's also been advising the city of Portland, Kennebunkport, and Kittery. So I will turn it over to you, Aga, if you'd like to give an overview of the situation.
Recording in
Sure,
progress.
I'd be happy to. And if you have any questions while I'm going through this, by all means interrupt. I'm happy to take questions during this brief presentations or after, whatever you prefer. But Christy asked me to sort of refresh everybody's mind because this process of updating your floodplain management program has really been going on since, I'd say, at least 2017. So as you probably remember, the town of Harpswell became a participant in the National Flood Insurance Program right around 1985 or 1986. And at that time, to become a participant, the voters of the town adopted the first floodplain management ordinance, and by reference also incorporated a series of flood insurance rate maps known as FIRMs that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, had developed developed. And I have to apologize, the world of FEMA is filled with acronyms. I'm going to try to go through them as I speak, but if you get lost in the alphabet soup, please don't hesitate to interrupt and ask. There's quite a bit in here. So since, and the reason that communities really become members or participants in the NFIP, this National Flood Insurance Program, is really for two reasons. First, to identify flood-prone areas in their community, those places that have the highest risk of flooding. And second, to allow and to develop regulations around what can and cannot occur in those flood-prone areas. And second, to allow individual landowners and renters to participate in federally subsidized flood insurance. So if you're in one of these flood zones, flood insurance may be available on the private market. Less so, frankly, years out, but even so, if you're participating in this program, you can buy subsidized flood insurance through FEMA. So every, but FEMA is the agency that's responsible for basically maintaining and updating those flood maps for the, tens of thousands of communities nationwide that participate. And every year, FEMA conducts flood hazard studies and picks certain communities throughout the nation for mapping updates. So FEMA started that mapping update for the communities in Cumberland County, I believe back in 2009. And it's been quite a long process. Through a number of fits and starts, FEMA finally developed a set of maps in 2017, a set of preliminary maps in 2017, and then again in 2023. And that was the most recent mapping update. But I want to take you back a little bit to 2017 because it really bears upon the question that is being presented to the voters next week. So those proposed maps, called preliminary maps, that were developed by FEMA in 2017, were reviewed by professionals, including your staff, and it was noted that there were some pretty significant exaggerated flood risks on those maps, particularly in coastal areas of Maine, mid-coast and southern Maine. And so a number of communities, including Harpswell, teamed up and retained an engineering firm known as Ransom to essentially file an appeal of those preliminary maps, which is part of the process of adopting these maps that FEMA has to go through. And under that appeal process, the communities had to provide an alternative analysis, a hydrogeological analysis, and a set of maps, and prove to FEMA that that alternative analysis and those alternative maps were scientifically and technically more accurate than FEMA's preliminary maps. And so that happened in 2018, and after about a 10 to 12 month process, FEMA came back to the communities and denied our appeal. And that's really when I became involved, because the basis for the denial was highly unusual. It wasn't really a detailed analysis of the validity of the alternative model. Rather, FEMA spotted a unit conversion error in Ransom's model and denied the entire appeal on that basis. So at that point, all of these communities who had invested significant resources and time to really correct maps that virtually everybody acknowledged were flawed, had some choices to make. Several of the communities decided to use an alternative dispute resolution process in front of a scientific panel to challenge FEMA's denial. Harpswell, in combination with a number of 4 other communities, as Christy mentioned, didn't go that route. And the reason for that was that because there were some significant into all the gory details took a long time. It was only in 2023, and really in late 2023, that those loamers were essentially conditionally approved by FEMA, and their effective dates are tied to the effective dates of the preliminary maps, so what I call the flawed maps. So what is in front of you now is a little bit complicated. You have a set of proposed floodplain management ordinance amendments that are updates to your current floodplain ordinance based on the state model that Sue Baker and her team has developed, and that you have been discussing with her over the past few weeks as to some of those details. But also in that ordinance is a cross-reference that incorporates by reference FEMA's 2023 preliminary maps. And for purposes of Harpswell's preliminary maps, those are the same as the 2017 maps. What we have essentially negotiated is if the voters adopt that ordinance and thereby adopt the preliminary maps by reference, then the corrected maps, the loamers, will become automatically effective the day after the FEMA preliminary maps become effective, so June 21st. So that's a long and sordid explanation for what has happened here. It's been a multi-year process to get to this point, but basically what you have in front of you is simply the ministerial task of placing the article in front of the voters to update the floodplain management program for Harpswell, so that it includes the changes to the ordinance itself that the state recommends, as well as the changes to the flood maps that FEMA recommends. And if those two things are approved through Article 5 of your ordinance, of your warrant, then the loamers will automatically apply the following day. So I know that there have been some questions about what happens if the voters reject the question, the article on the floodplain management ordinance. And I believe I've sent you some information by email about that. I believe Sue Baker has really explained it as well, in terms of the risk of being suspended from the National Flood Insurance Program. So I'm not going to spend any time on that. I'm happy to answer questions, and Sue is probably better positioned to answer questions about what happens if you get suspended. What I wanted to highlight for you is that should that happen, I would recommend for you to initiate a pretty robust and a robust process to decide what to do on a policy levels, because in that circumstances, doing nothing is not an option. You know, if the voters reject the ordinance on June 15th, then the town would very likely need to hold a special town meeting shortly after June 15th and ask the voters to do one of two things: either amend the town's existing ordinance to deal with all kinds of legal issues that would result because there are references to the FEMA flood maps, not just in your floodplain management program, but also in your shoreline zoning ordinance. And so we would have to untangle that web to essentially divorce the town from the NFIP. Or alternatively, you know, and probably more realistically, it would require a process by which the voters would be asked to reconsider the changes, because as I think you can appreciate now, the consequences to the town and to the landowners and renters in the town who are in these flood hazard areas are pretty severe if one were to withdraw the community from the National Flood Insurance Program. So that's a quick overview of how we got here. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on the loamer maps, the process, or anything else on your mind.
I do know there are a couple of businesses in town that have the Lomars, and they're anticipating that this vote goes through, because on the 21st, all the work they've done and all the money they paid, we'll take them out of the floodplain. But if it gets voted down, then it sounds like they're in trouble.
Yeah, the whole point of going through this appeal process was to correct these errors that, extended floodplain, high-risk floodplain areas to places where, the science really didn't support their existence. And so the Lomars make those corrections and pull back, in many cases, locations where special flood hazard areas show on the preliminary maps. On the Lomars, they're not there.
Right.
So it's really to make those maps more accurate.
The butterfly effect to this would be horrendous. So, any other questions for her? Jane?
No, thank you.
David? I think we're good.
Thank you, Ira.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me. Have a good rest of your evening. Take care.
Thanks for
Thank-
being available.
It's been a doozy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
We could do the same thing with Sue.
Well, if I can get Sue on the phone, well, it goes to her voicemail.
What's that?
I don't know if I can get her on the phone. Did you have questions for her? I didn't have a cell
No.
phone for her.
I don't really. Everything came through as what we expected.
Maybe Mark could address some of the comments that we got at the last public hearing and the update that we received from the state.
Do you want Sue's memo? You want Sue's memo that we got just now?
Haven't seen it.
Oh,
What does it say?
you sent this afternoon, the resolutions?
You've
Yeah,
seen those are Sue's comments.
comments.
Oh, her old comments.
So these are after the public hearing, her follow-up.
Right.
comments. They're posted
Right,
on the
right.
You
Oh,
said
yes.
that before I.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the public before the planning board at both of its public hearings raised a series of issues. One that repeated itself in a number of places in the ordinance was a requirement that certain things be done by a professional engineer and/or an architect, and through various negotiations, that has been changed in the relevant sections to be a qualified professional. A qualified professional is now defined in the last section or next to last section of the ordinance. I think you may have received a copy of an email to Sue from the director of the engineers licensing board saying that he was comfortable with that definition and that that definition would allow experienced wharf designers or builders who could document their experience and credentials to be considered to be a qualified professional. There was concern raised at the public hearing about the limit of lobster shacks or whatever the ordinance calls them on wharfs and piers being limited to 200 square feet. FEMA said no to expanding that and said that if that provision wasn't included or if it was expanded, that would be grounds for finding the ordinance not in conformance with the federal requirements. There was a suggestion that the whole section about the impact of changes to the natural resources by building seawalls or installing riprap should be removed, and FEMA said no, that couldn't be removed. So I guess we got sort of like success on what I heard to be the big issue, the requirement about professional engineers being required that would exclude many of the local firms and individuals from continuing to do this work. And so that's kind of where we are. I think I have a comparison of what the issues were and what the responses were, and it's, kind of 50-50.
Right.
And where they were agreeable to making a change and where they said no.
All righty. So, are we good with Article 2?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I amend my remarks?
No?
There was a comment made at the last public hearing that there still are some places in the ordinance as proposed that require that things be done by professional engineers or architects. And those sections really only apply to activities that occur on land and involve structures which the ordinance defines as having walls and a roof. So those requirements don't really impact the discussion about wharves and what have you.
All right. Anybody else want to speak to this? You good with it?
Yes,
Yep.
I am good with it.
All right. We're good.
So it's recommended by the board. and
Recommended by the board.
I think you have to decide
Sign.
now if you are ready to execute signing the special town meeting warrant for June 15th, 2024. So moved.
So moved, seconded.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
All right. Other business.
Couple of things.
Oh, didn't see that coming. I figured you're halfway out the door.
So another horizontal lease has been signed and turned in for the board's counter signature.
Recording in progress.
Did want to just note, at the previous meeting, the select board approved the Anchor's request for use of Mitchell Field for July 21st for their annual event with a rain date of August 18th. They've since then reached out to say that the event will take place, period, on August 18th with no
No rain
backup
date.
date, no rain date. So
Okay.
that was different than what was presented, so I'm just noting that for the board's attention. And would like to ask you about your upcoming schedule. So if you continue on this every 2-week cycle, July 4th will be the meeting
Oh.
after the next. So, so was wondering if you wanted to go 1 week back to back, or if you want to go 3 weeks out. We can make that work appropriately with accounts payable warrants, if you'd like to just
We could do a Wednesday if you
skip
wanted
it.
to.
You could do a Wednesday, or you could go to July 11th. Go 3 weeks out instead of 2 weeks.
Is there,
I mean, we're going to meet on the 20th,
Mhm.
so I think we could maybe get to
The July
the
11th.
11th.
Mhm. We were thinking that might work.
Sure.
yeah.
Didn't know what worked
It would be
best.
fine. It works
Great.
for me anyway.
That's all I
Is that it? Oh.
Almost taking the summer off.
It is.
Mr. Chairman,
Public comment.
members of the board, I'm going to steal Mary Ann's thunder again for a minute. As I think you may be aware, the Conservation Commission is working on a program for this summer dealing with water, groundwater, use of water, etc. Earlier tonight, the chair of the Comprehensive Plan Committee said that Harpswell does not have an aquifer. That is entirely incorrect. Harpswell is served by a fractured groundwater aquifer, and the Conservation Commission and Kevin representing the Affordable Housing Working Group and possibly the Comprehensive Plan Committee is working on a program to look at the groundwater resource, have the state hydrogeologist come and do some discussions about what a bedrock aquifer is, how it works, how you get water out of it, etc. So I think it's an important issue, and so that's going on. And Mary Ann, you want to say anything more?
Mary Ann Nape, with the Conservation Commission and the Resiliency Committee. It's okay, Mark, that you stole my thunder. But the Conservation Commission and the Water Witches, which we did a couple of programs last year, we want to coordinate with the geologist, the hydrologist when he comes to town, and have a have him give a really good explanation, which will give us the credentials that we're talking about. We also then would like to follow up on what it means to live in Harpswell with a fractured rock aquifer. What we're going to get to is how we have to use water wisely, how we have to save water. And we're hoping to have some handouts at town meeting next week. Also at the non-resident taxpayer meeting, with a real emphasis for this program that will be given sometime when we can make arrangements with the hydrogeologist when he has the time, and at which point it would be a big rollout at that time. So we're really hoping that we can, working with the Comprehensive Plan Task Force, really start to maybe give some more deeper thinking about some of the concerns when we're talking about water in town and the availability of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any room for general comment?
Yes.
I said no. Not really.
I'm sorry, Mike Dana, Potts Point. First of all, I want to thank all of you and all the town staff for doing what you do. Fortuitously, we ended up here tonight to represent our daughter with this, as this exciting meeting went on. Wasn't a lot of good news, other than our daughter's permit being accepted.
Is she open right now?
No. But as the town is being gobbled up by the ocean and all the other things, the costs of everything going up, after having spent 45 years of taking access to the ocean for granted, it almost seems like the town is headed for a perfect storm in that now we can't afford a launch. The town dock is gone. The only town dock is gone. Who knows what's going to happen with that? And so here we are in a coastal community with all this shoreline, and other than commercial docks and private docks and things like that, the public at large doesn't have access. I don't know what you do. I mean, this is just making my head spin tonight. And it's, I can't see it getting any better, so I don't know if there are plans in the future. And it's not a question, but it's just a comment that, you know, we won't be around that much longer, but.
That's the spirit.
Yeah, but I'd like to, you know, to sustain the residents moving into Harpswell. I'd like to just see these kind of things improve. Thank you.
I will take a look at Potts Point Dock tomorrow, and I'll talk to Paul where we stand. No, apparently it's not usable,
What? What did you say?
the landing at Potts, the boat ramp.
Oh, it's not boat launch?
Yeah,
Well, from the January storm.
yeah,
Right.
Well, the board approved contracting with R.A. Weber to fix it.
yeah. They haven't yet.
It was approved 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
And they've got us on their schedule, and it's, well,
Hey,
it's just a curve, like,
They-
out
they-
of the projects that we have.
They need to launch their boat.
Fortunately, because I agree with Mr. Dana about us being a coastline, a shoreline community, but when somebody else also said earlier, I think Spike said, you know, we don't have a boat launch. And I saw the reaction of members of the public that were behind Spike. I mean, the fortunate thing about Harpswell is we have multiple town landings, boat launches. I've made no qualms about me being a public property advocate, and sometimes that can upset some abutters, but I abut a town property, and I will always protect town property access, and as I think hopefully all of us would. But with that said, there are other boat launches, not as convenient as Potts, but Potts, we do have, they authorized 3 projects, and out of the 3 projects, Giant Stairs, Graveyard Point, and Potts, we did ask them to do Potts first, so they know we're nipping at their heels, and so hopefully that will be soon. Outside of what we were going to hopefully building at Mitchell Field, that is your next best commercial one, maybe. I don't know if I'm qualified to make that statement, but.
I thank the chairman for trying our bell, but that's not why. I didn't intend to make a comment about that, but it is the only place we can put our boat in. I know it's not your problem. It's our problem.
But they're also commercial. Definitely hear you, and we're working on it.
I know you've got to.
It's been a heck of a year. Yes.
All right.
For all. Oh.
If nothing else, then we're adjourned. Do, 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 do.